Here's a telling detail. Only China has publicly declared, "We will fight till the end" in Trump's tariff war. Donald Trump has never made that commitment, not once. He's never pledged to fight China to the bitter end. And crucially, nobody working for Trump has dared make that promise either, because they all understand Trump might cave and surrender to China at literally any moment. And he already has. Trump has already abandoned his own tariff scheme on auto parts exported from China. Today in Michigan, Trump attempted to spin this surrender as a magnanimous gesture toward the American automobile industry and auto workers, claiming he's generously allowing them access to the parts they desperately need to actually build cars in the United States. But America's largest automaker, General Motors, responded today by withdrawing its profit projection for the entire year because Trump's tariffs will inflate prices, devastate sales, and make everything more expensive for everyone. Multiple economic projections now predict Trump's tariffs will push the American economy directly into recession. Why? Because tariffs raise prices. It's that simple. The Christmas nightmare. 90% of goods more expensive. 90% of Christmas goods purchased in the United States will cost dramatically more this year. The New York Times published a devastating analysis of the Scrooge effect Trump's tariffs will inflict on the upcoming holiday season. Toy manufacturers, children's specialty shops, and retailers are pausing orders for the winter holidays as import taxes cascade through supply chains. Factories in China produce nearly 80% of all toys and 90% of Christmas goods sold in America. Alarm throughout the industry is palpable, with companies predicting severe product shortages and catastrophic price increases. Some business owners, citing how critical holiday sales are to their survival, are already consulting bankruptcy lawyers. Read that again. Some business owners who depend entirely on Christmas consumer spending are already meeting with bankruptcy attorneys. And we're still in April with 239 shopping days remaining until Christmas. That's how catastrophic Trump's tariff disaster has become. Howard Lutnick's Mango Madness. The perpetually goofy Howard Lutnick, Trump's thoroughly unqualified and stunningly incompetent Commerce Secretary, attempted to insist to CNBC's Brian Sullivan today that Trump's tariffs wouldn't increase consumer prices. Sullivan, along with anyone possessing even rudimentary knowledge of how pricing functions, couldn't accept this economic fantasy. If a company says they're raising prices because of the tariff, is that a hostile act? Sullivan asked. Lutnick responded with jaw-dropping ignorance. I think if you go out of your way to make it seem like your price has changed when it's nonsense, a 10% tariff is not going to change virtually any price. The only price it would change would be a product we don't make here, like a mango. And there it was. Sullivan was absolutely right. That response was complete nonsense. The interview then spiraled off the rails into what can only be described as Mangoland, with the utterly ignorant Lutnick changing subjects so frantically that Sullivan never recovered the opportunity to challenge the most ignorant Commerce Secretary in American history on what he just claimed on national television. Howard Lutnick actually stated on camera that a 10% tariff won't change virtually any price. So according to Lutnick's economic fantasy, adding 10% to a product's cost when it enters the United States will have zero effect on that product's final price to consumers. This is mathematical impossibility presented as policy. Trump's eating tariffs. Gibberish. This brings us to Donald Trump's bizarre eating tariff concept. Trump is obviously not a mango enthusiast, so he mumbled incoherently through an interview about eating tariffs without mentioning any food products that humans actually consume. When confronted about tariffs raising prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building materials, Trump responded, "You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China is going to eat those tariffs. China probably will eat those tariffs." Remember when Trump promised during his campaign that China would eat the tariffs? Of course you don't, because he never said it. His campaign messaging was completely different. We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost another country. I heard Kamala say, if you do that, he's raising your taxes. No, no, no. I'm not raising your taxes. I'm raising taxes on China and all these countries in Asia and around the world. Imagine if any country could actually raise taxes in another country. It's constitutional and economic absurdity. The mathematical impossibility. What Trump and Lutnick apparently mean is that Chinese exporters will somehow lower their prices by the exact amount of the tariff, which in China's case is currently 145%. So according to their fantasy economics, a $100 product exported from China will still cost exactly $100 in the United States because the Chinese producer will reduce their export price by $145. If you're attempting to calculate that math in your head, stop now. It's literally impossible. You cannot reduce a $100 price by $145 and still have a product to sell. This is why stores selling toys and Christmas products are canceling their holiday orders right now and consulting bankruptcy lawyers. They understand something Trump and his economic team refuse to acknowledge. American consumers will not pay 145% more for Christmas tree decorations or children's toys. And retailers absolutely do not want inventory they cannot sell sitting in warehouses in December. They also cannot simply decide to order products in November because of something we all learned about during COVID, the supply chain. Jobs dying at the ports. Right now, supply chains take time, and those supply chains are already slowing dramatically, putting Americans out of work right now. The supply chain from China primarily enters the United States through West Coast ports, with the Port of Los Angeles handling the largest volume. The executive director of the Port of Los Angeles told CNBC he expects incoming cargo volume to slide by more than a third next week compared with the same period in 2024. The West Coast Dock Workers Union issued a devastating statement today. These tariffs are nothing more than a direct attack on the working class and should be opposed outright. The reality is clear. These tariffs don't put America first. They put American working people last. They will kill jobs, raise costs, and fuel economic instability that will ripple through every community in this country. Trump's tariffs are already destroying American jobs, like truck driving positions at the Port of Los Angeles, which makes it even more ludicrous when Trump's team insists tariffs won't raise prices domestically. Kevin Hassett's inelastic deception. The sunniest face in Trump's world belongs to the permanently smiling Kevin Hassett, White House National Economic Council Director. Nothing can make this man stop smiling. He doesn't deploy Peter Navarro's menacing scowl when discussing China. He doesn't look like a circus performer the way Howard Lutnick does when babbling about mangoes on television. And Hassett doesn't discuss eating tariffs like Trump does. Instead, Hassett uses economist speak to deceive interviewers into believing he actually understands what he's talking about. The tell in what you're about to hear is Hassett, a Swarthmore College graduate who earned his PhD in economics at the University of Pennsylvania, deploying the word inelastic. Most people go their entire lives without ever hearing or speaking this word. It appears in every introductory college economics course alongside its partner, elastic. In those courses, we discuss elastic demand, demand that fluctuates, and inelastic demand, demand that remains steady. We examine elastic supply, like toy supply this December, which is clearly elastic since orders are being canceled right now, and inelastic supply, meaning permanent supply that rarely declines significantly. Energy demand is extremely consistent, which economists sometimes characterize as inelastic. Watch how the perpetually smiling Trump economist sneaks in the word inelastic to claim something absolutely impossible while getting away with it because he's using technical language from his University of Pennsylvania education. Today's question concerned Donald Trump calling Jeff Bezos, Amazon's owner and operator, to complain about an Axios story reporting that Amazon was considering identifying tariff-related price increases directly on their website. After Bezos received Trump's call, Amazon's Washington lobbyist released a statement declaring Amazon would never do that. They would never inform Amazon consumers about what Trump's tariffs have done to their prices. We live in a country where gas pumps display exactly how many pennies in each gallon's price represents federal gas tax and state gas tax, but Amazon will never reveal how much Trump's tariffs are adding to your costs. Jeff Bezos has personally promised Trump this will never happen, as if consumers can't figure it out themselves. Here's how Kevin Hassett responded to news of the Trump-Bezos phone call. Listen carefully for the word if, always critical with economists. Listen for if and the absolutely impossible hypothetical that follows. The bottom line is that if we charge a tariff on a foreign country, then if they have inelastic supply to us, then the supplier in that country is going to bear the tariff, not the U.S. consumer. The idea that Amazon would say the tariff is passing through to consumers means they don't understand economics. So you covered it as a debacle. I did think it was a debacle for whoever does economics at Amazon because they were assuming something contrary to basic economics about who bears the tariff. It was correct for Jeff Bezos to apologize and correct the record that Amazon, whoever did it, made a big mistake. I wonder if they'll have a job tomorrow. This man should absolutely not have the job he currently holds. He's an undistinguished economist who has never accomplished anything significant in the economics field and has never been cited by other serious economists. And there's the smiling economist who has never accepted an invitation to appear on this program, telling you prices won't increase in America for any product with inelastic supply. He says inelastic supply really fast, making it sound authoritative, like he possesses secret knowledge. But this is an economist's hypothetical which, like most such hypotheticals, has absolutely zero meaning in the real world. The bankruptcy reality. You might assume Christmas toys represent the closest thing possible to products with both inelastic demand and inelastic supply, a supply that simply must keep flowing regardless of circumstances. But toy retailers across America are already consulting bankruptcy attorneys because they understand that hypothetical about inelastic supply is complete nonsense. They know it's mathematically impossible for any Chinese exporter to reduce product prices by 145%. This is the new deception game. Trump now claims China will probably eat the tariffs. During his campaign, he stated it far more simply. China will pay those tariffs. Just pay them. You don't have to worry. China will step up and pay a tariff that's supposed to be paid by us. How generous of China. Americans know the truth. The vast majority of voters now understand exactly who will pay these tariffs. People who have never heard the phrase inelastic supply understand this far better than PhD economist Kevin Hassett. Americans know they will pay the tariffs. Americans understand that the only money flowing into the United States Treasury from tariffs will come from Americans in America and nobody else. It is legally and technically impossible for tariff revenue to be paid by anyone outside the United States. No tariff money has ever flowed into the U.S. Treasury from another country, only from ports receiving imported products. On extremely low tariffs applied to products with high profit margins, it's theoretically conceivable that, say, a 4% tariff might provoke a foreign producer to reduce their export price by 4%. So after the tariff is paid at the port of entry by, for example, Best Buy importing a television, that TV's price at Best Buy could potentially remain unchanged. But that doesn't mean the foreign country paid the tariff. Best Buy paid the tariff at the dock, which means Americans paid the tariff. And ultimately, Best Buy customers will all pay that tariff when Best Buy distributes the cost across all products sold in their stores. If Best Buy is fortunate, they can spread the tariff cost across enough products that individual price increases remain small enough to go unnoticed. But the catastrophic problem with that example is that Donald Trump has imposed tariffs on every single product Best Buy sells, every single one. The polling disaster, worst 100 days in history. In new polling released today, Tariff Scrooge Donald Trump receives a grade of F on his first 100 days from 45% of Americans. 55% disapprove of how Trump is handling his job. Only 39% approve. 64% disapprove specifically of Trump's tariffs because they understand them. 72% believe it's very or somewhat likely that Trump's economic policies will trigger a recession. And here's a number seemingly unachievable in American political polling. 89% believe Trump's tariffs will likely result in higher prices on products they purchase, regardless of what the smiling economist claims. The tariff Scrooge now holds the worst polling numbers in the entire history of polling at the end of a president's first 100 days. The secret deal fantasy. Now, to rescue themselves from the worst first 100 days polling in presidential history, Trump's team is pretending that for the first time ever, the United States has secretly negotiated a trade deal. This has never happened before and can never happen. Watch if you can catch why in Howard Lutnick's ridiculous statement about this alleged secret deal. I have a deal done, but I need to wait for their prime minister and their parliament to give approval, which I expect shortly. I'm not going to tell you what country. I'll let the president decide. And then there are country after country where we're just working through details. We have to remember they have prime ministers, they have parliaments, they have to work through their process. But all of these are going to be coming. Yes, they have prime ministers and parliaments. He just discovered this fact, and that's precisely one of many reasons why trade negotiations have always been conducted publicly, because trade negotiations between heads of state mean absolutely nothing and must always be approved by parliaments, or in America's case, by Congress. The last time Donald Trump completed a trade deal, and the only time, it was a straightforward revision and update of NAFTA. And that deal wasn't finalized until the Canadian Parliament, Mexican Congress, and United States Congress all approved it. In other words, Howard Lutnick and Trump's team promised 90 trade deals in 90 days. We're now 18 days into that promise with 0 trade deals completed. The historical reality: no trade deal since the invention of the telephone has ever been negotiated and completed in any form, even as a first draft, in less than 90 days. Trade agreements are complex, detailed documents requiring months or years of negotiation, legal review, and legislative approval. Trump's promise was always fantasy. The secret deal claim is desperate spin from a failing administration watching its economic policy collapse in real time. The bottom line: Trump's tariff war is an unmitigated disaster built on economic illiteracy, mathematical impossibility, and shameless deception. His administration deploys incompetent officials to spread lies about eating tariffs and inelastic supply, while American businesses consult bankruptcy lawyers and American workers lose their jobs. The polling reflects reality. Americans understand they're paying these tariffs. They know prices are rising. They recognize recession is coming, and they're giving Trump the worst approval ratings in presidential history. Christmas will be more expensive and less abundant. Jobs are disappearing at ports, toy stores are closing, and Trump's team is reduced to claiming secret trade deals that don't exist while promising 90 agreements they'll never complete. This is economic policy as farce. This is governance as delusion. This is Trump's tariff catastrophe, and Americans are paying the price every single day. The eating tariffs fantasy, the secret deal fiction, the inelastic supply deception, all of it represents a desperate administration flailing as economic reality destroys their carefully constructed lies. And while Trump's team smiles and spins and pretends China will somehow absorb 145% tariffs, American families are preparing for the most expensive, scarce Christmas in modern history. That's the real story. That's the truth Trump can't eat his way out of.